Hello and welcome back to the Seeker's Reset. I am Robert. I am the host of this channel, and today, the episode, well, actually, today, for the first time, if you are actually paying attention to this channel, um, the first time I've jerry rigged it a bit in this room so that I get a bit more light on my face so you can see me a bit more clearly. And as a result, you also get to see the wonderful dry cleaning that is hanging on that door over there, which I did not remove, and now it will stay there for the duration. I'll move this over just a little bit, for the duration of the show. So, in the last episode, I talked about personal responsibility, and I was attempting to reframe it in terms of the responsibility that we have for knowing ourselves in order to do the things that are typically associated with personal responsibility, which include learning how to take care of oneself on a physical, mostly on the physical level. Okay, the physical, as in shelter, food, and money, which I described as being not technically essential, but the primary tool that we utilize in the world in order to get food and shelter. In reality, what we need are resources, including food and shelter and other things. In our reality, in our world, right now, money is the primary way to get there. And reckoning with that is actually a big part of any sincere seeker's journey. And that's something I think I'll talk about in a subsequent episode because I'm really going through all of this in my life right now. But today I'm going to introduce a topic that I've only learned or decided to call the dilemma. The dilemma is that which I believe drives us on a quest. It is at the heart, the motivating factor that drives any seeker to go on his or her quest. Now, when I use the word quest, it's also a good kind of connection to something else I want to just compare this with, which is the hero's journey, right? And in the hero's journey, there is a moment called that is referred to as the call or the calling, the call to adventure. And the call to adventure is this moment when the hero or the hero in the making is going to leave what's normal and ordinary and go off into something extraordinary. And then eventually, if they complete their journey, they will come back with some sort of gift for everyone they left behind in the normal world. And I'm going to say, I don't think it's terribly controversial, but I'm going to dispute that seekers really follow this pattern exactly, and that it's less of a call and more of well, there is a call, but the call emerges out of this dilemma. And the dilemma, generally speaking, is some insoluble issue, problem, etc. in one's life. For me, it was it's still to this day, and it's not resolved, still to this day, a combination of things involving material concerns like money, mistakes that I've made in relationships, in business, just in society, ways that I've been irresponsible, bonds, familial, social, economic, spiritual bonds, that we could call like the patterns that live inside of us or the belief systems that live inside of us, the emotional injuries that live inside of us, the codependencies that exist and that we were sort of raised within. And the desire to resolve these things that doesn't seem available anywhere. Like I can't find it. My search mostly has been to resolve these things. And I refer to it as the dilemma. There's another metaphor that I've often referred to it as called the Gordian knot. Dilemma I did a little bit of research for this episode, just simple. Dilemma comes from the Latin and Greek term of the same, which is dilemma, and it refers to a double proposition. And the dictionary, at least Merriam-Webster's, defines it as a situation that requires a choice between options that are or seem equally unfavorable or unsatisfactory. A problem that seems to defy satisfactory solution. So in essence, you're in a situation where something seems impossible. A dilemma seems impossible. In ancient Greek history / mythology, there's this idea called the Gordian knot. And the Gordian knot was literally, well, as the story goes, literally a knot that was tying some kind of an ox cart. And this occurred in this region called Phrygia. And Alexander the Great at some point was challenged to untie this knot. And it was said that if he or whomever was able to untie the knot, would become the ruler of all of Asia. So it has like similarities with the notion or the story of the sword and the stone of King Arthur. Eventually, what Alexander is supposed to have done is, instead of untying the knot, he took a sword and just cut it. Okay, so he didn't actually go through the process of untying the knot. I'm going to come back to that part of the metaphor in a moment. But there's a knot. There's some kind of a knot, a dilemma, and a knot. Both of these things have resonated with me as I've come to, understand my own journey. Some kind of intractable, seemingly impossible situation, which produces a feeling of being called to something else, right? We can't seem to settle for the solutions that everybody else seems to accept. And so we believe that there's something else out there. There must be some other way, right? Most seekers are saying there must be some other way of living, some other way of solving this problem, some other way of existing in this reality. There must be something more. And for most of us, the reason that we have that sense is because we have paid attention potentially to things that a lot of other people either never paid attention to or stopped paying attention to. And that is sort of like the synchronicities of life, the magic, the outliers, the things that stand out, which the vast majority of people, I have come to realize, simply brush off. Sometimes they'll refer to it as a coincidence or a miracle. Okay. Or it's just the way it is, or they'll say something like everything happens for a reason, and then they'll just, that will end the conversation. I think I've talked about that in a previous video as well, how in our language, we will say things that cliches, relatively meaningless statements. I mean, they have real meaning if you think about them deeply, but they've come to mean next to nothing in our world. And those statements will kind of end deeper examinations of topics. We live in a world where we do that like experts. But if you're like me and you went on a search of some kind, I believe that this dilemma, this Gordian knot, is what produces this desire for something more. And that could be associated with the call. And so let me link this now to personal responsibility. Personal responsibility is sort of owning each of our own dilemmas and knowing that the dilemma was not initiated by us. In virtually every instance I can imagine, these dilemmas are, in the first place and in large part, inherited. Okay. and or inflicted upon us when we are very, very young. And it seems to me that the average person after that generally just lets it, I won't say lets it go, but has some kind of amnesia that they don't want to let go of. And we all have some amnesia. In fact, I believe that if we didn't have amnesia in some bigger sense, we would have the solution to our individual dilemma. So in a way, the call in the hero's journey is towards a state of development and remembering things that will allow us to solve the dilemma. And each of us is responsible for our own dilemma. Even the people who don't pay attention to it are responsible for theirs. But they just are abdicating that responsibility. So now, what does this mean for a seeker's reset? Well, the seeker's reset starts with some kind of an awakening to this dilemma in a new way, in a way that actually puts a crack in it. Let's say if you're untying a knot, you finally figured out like where to start with the knot. That's the awakening. But the reset is when you decide you haven't just found where to start. You actually are going to go through the process of untying this thing. That's a very big choice. That's the choice I'm facing right now. And it's a day-to-day commitment. And it's not a commitment that I make well. And you know that I've been critical of the notion of seeking in other episodes. And I will continue to return to this and say that most seekers never go through this awakening to reset moment because they just keep seeking because they want it to be easier than it actually is. And we are inundated in our world, especially online, but everywhere, by things that reinforce this notion that it should be easier than it actually is. And I'm not here to tell you I have the final answers. In fact, if anything, I direct you to Divine Truth. Check out that YouTube channel. Check out divinetruth.com. I wrestle with divine truth all the time. But it is the only way of understanding life that has ever really given me a sense that there is objective truth and that there is such a thing as love and that there is such a thing as God or such a being as God. And I have not achieved much in any of these regards as of yet. But these all come from divine truth. So we live in a culture also, much like Alexander the Great. Oh, there's a knot. Instead of untying this knot and preserving the rope, because the rope has meaning. The rope, in this instance, as a metaphor that I'm using, the rope is our life. The rope is our experience. The rope is our identity. You come in and you cut that rope, and in a large part, you're denying yourself. Because what do you have to do in order, like, what then? You have two ropes. So now your life is split in two. I could go further with this. Actually, this metaphor is more intriguing than I thought, and maybe I'll have to investigate it further. But what I'm trying to get at is there's a forceful way to undo the knot. Cut it. And that may have some use. For me, that was the leaving of everything that I had. I tried to cut the knot. I left actually my ex-wife left, but I accepted and encouraged a divorce. I left my business. I sold it, but left it. It was more of an escape than a sale. I left my home. I started traveling. For 5 years, I basically traveled. Haven't had a home in 5 years. 6 almost. I gave up everything that I was used to. That was my version of trying to cut the knot. This idea that I could just move on, move past everything. But guess what? It was all still inside of me. In fact, if I can even make this analogy when I think of, you can't see very well, but when I think of the pain, one of the major pains that completely just owns me, just like it's such a distraction in my life for decades, is a pain right here in my liver gallbladder area. And then another one right here in my heart and in the back in the same place. And then up here on the side of my head and down my legs as well in the groin area, right in the pelvic region. In fact, it crosses through my genitals. But in every case of these places, it feels like there's a knot. It feels like something is clenched, like a knot. Call it the fascia, something. There is a knot. And no matter where I went in life, no matter how I tried to move on to the next thing, these things have stayed with me. So for me, the reset is returning literally home. I'm here in my parents' house. It doesn't have to be this way, but for me it is. And for many people, it will be. It's coming home and facing my dilemma. How to take care of myself when I feel like nobody else understands me, when I feel like the world doesn't allow me to be who I am, when I feel like no work is accommodating my needs physically, emotionally, spiritually, when I have liabilities from the past that still haunt me, like so many. When my relationships have broken down and I don't know how to engage people anymore, I don't even know how to receive support anymore from people. I feel like I'm the only one dealing with this thing. And I'm not, but I feel that way. And I think that's what leads to the call to separate and go away and try to create a different life. But I'm here to tell you that personal responsibility and ultimately what's best for us dictates not doing that in the end. In the end, it dictates learning to look at the knot and untie it. It dictates making choices within this dilemma. It means giving up perfectionism in that respect, that yes, there are choices that will always involve a loss, at least seemingly, because you could say that this notion that there's a situation that requires a choice between options that are or seem equally unfavorable, something that defies a satisfactory solution, you could say that that's a matter of consciousness. It's a matter of, are we coming at it from a place of fear and a narrow vision, or are we coming at it from a place of love and an expansive vision? I'm not yet in that loving, expansive place, but I do know that the answer to virtually all of my problems is that I allow that to become who I am. That I learn to essentially love my dilemma because it's mine. Because somehow this makes me who I am. Because somehow the process of solving it will unlock everything that I'm here to do and everything that I am. But it is terrifying. And if you are in a similar situation, you know it's terrifying. You know it seems impossible. You know it. But there's also something else, right, that tells you like, no, this is why I'm here. This is why I'm here. And I can't put an easy name on it, like, oh, I'm a healer, or I'm here to be a leader, or I'm here to do this particular kind of work, or I'm here to fight for a certain cause. Like, no, it's more of, I'm here to go through this. and to learn how to go through it. And somehow that's going to be exactly what I need, instead of seeking something out there as an answer. And you may have found a lot of interesting things out there. I did. I found incredibly interesting things, mystical things, mythical things. Like I can't even begin to tell you the things I've experienced yet. I will tell you more and share more about what I've learned about time and space and reality. And maybe that's part of what I'm here to do, is to share those things. I don't know. But what I do know is there's a dilemma. And if you are listening to me, you are facing a dilemma. There's a knot in your life and inside of you, probably more than one. And our personal responsibility is to own and love and resolve and untie that knot or that dilemma. It is fundamental to our personal responsibility and fundamental to our identity, our unique identity, our nature, our personality are found somewhere in this mess. Somewhere in the mess that you're looking at, somewhere in it, probably in a lot of different parts of it, you are there, the real you. Somewhere in it. So a bit of an involved episode. I hope that I was clear enough that you could follow the key points of what I'm saying. The message is we have to own our dilemma. We have to own our mess. If we were children, oh, this would have been good to talk about. I'll have to come to this the next time. If we were children, and we were when this dilemma began, and we were told we have to clean up our mess, go to our rooms. Right now, I am in my room. That is how mystical and symbolic and incredible this can be. I am in the room I grew up in, talking to you about cleaning up the mess that I created, that I inherited here, and that I made worse here. And I'm back here, facing it as best I can. Godspeed. Thank you for watching The Seeker's Reset. Take care.